Right. Yeah.
It's quite interesting.
Not sure if you would call it revolutionary. It's just different. But when it comes to drilling and all the other stuff, I'm pretty much traditional, I would say. So there's very much stress on the materials. Like wood is still alive, still can change from the environment, from the climate, and everything. So what I could say as a recommendation for customers or for pipe smokers,
Even the best pipe, if it has no cake
yeah.
layer, makes to tobacco taste a bit too raw and
Mhm.
overly fresh to me, sharper, less balanced. Like the
Yeah.
flowers haven't fully settled yet. What's your take on that? First of all, thank you for accepting my interview request, Dirk.
Thank you for asking me. I'm honored.
Thank you. And the other thanks also to Fatih Öden from our
Okay.
community for introducing us. Before I bombard with you my
Mhm.
questions, how are you? I hope everything is all right.
Yeah, yeah, I'm quite busy in a workshop. Chicago is getting closer, and some
Yeah.
customer commissions getting to work on, but that's normal. So yeah, I'm good.
Yeah, you will going to Chicago Pipe shows, right? What
Yes,
time? What
yes.
time?
That's beginning of May, I
May.
think. First weekend on May. I'm not sure the exact date, but the third probably, something like that.
Nice, nice.
Yeah.
I'll jump straight into the first question.
Yes,
I
please.
I watched your interview with our pipe smoking friend from Iran, Arash
Mhm.
Katmi. Yeah, and I learned that you actually started smoking a pipe after you began making them.
Right. Yeah.
It's quite interesting. Can you tell us a bit about what led you start making pipes in the first place?
Yeah, sure. So, I was never a smoker. I never smoked cigarettes or cigars or anything before that. And my uncle used to be a pipe smoker, but I think it was a little bit, the fascination of the ritual of packing a pipe
Uh huh.
and smoking it. And of course, the Lord of the Rings movies were quite popular at the time. I read the books before, but I guess the movie, the image of the hobbits smoking their pipes in a peaceful environment.
Yeah.
I was a woodworker before. I had my workshop and had a metal lathe and everything already. So I thought, give it a try. I always did some woodworking, and I thought maybe that might be something I would like to do. My plan was just making one for myself, and then people keep asking about it. I can make some pipes for them, and well, so
Yeah,
I
yeah.
stuck with it.
And your degree about the product design, right?
Yeah, product design. Yes, the same.
I think it will be so help for you,
Uh,
and
for sure.
yeah, yeah. Thank you. I have so much question and
Mhm.
uh,
Well, we have
detail.
time.
Okay, Dirk. In briar, what really decides quality? Age, cutting style, drying time, or curing method?
Well, I think it depends a little bit on what kind of pipe maker you are. Like if you're a factory, the cutting style is not that important because the grain orientation is not so important. If you're a freehand maker or like a hybrid maker, the orientation is a little bit more important. I think in general, the curing process and the age is good. Like the more older the briar, the better. But if you have some 30 years old briar, it's so dense, so hard, it's not really pleasant to work with. So I would say not the older the better, but it should be dry and ideally 2 or 3 years old for drying. That would be ideal. It's not always possible, but I would say that would be the best.
Okay. What's most quality of briar age?
Um, well, oh, sorry. Normally it's just, I get it from the briar cutter. Sometimes it's dry, sometimes it's still wet, and I let it sit in my storage for at least 1 year. Um, so it's at least 1 or 2 years old. So this is the average. I think some pipe makers have a more bigger storage, so they can let it cure more years.
Mhm.
I would like to do the two, but it's a lot of money to put aside.
Yeah. Yeah, yeah. Thank you. Thank you. Okay. Can two pipes from the same briar block be
Yeah.
very different? One grade and one average or mediocre. What do you think about that?
I think it could be if you have like one piece is more from the moment. So, for example, you have a
Uh-huh.
much bigger block than this one, and you have one pipe which is more from the plateau, and one is more from the center.
Hmm.
The way of how the wood can take the moisture is different from the center than from the outside. But I think it's just marginally. It's not really that big of difference. I think there would be no noticeable difference from one block.
Okay, okay, okay. When you start shaping a pipe from
Yes.
design, but later see the briar fits another shape better, do you keep the first design or change the shape for the briar?
Um, Usually I change it, but not completely. For example, I have an idea for a pipe shape, and I draw it on the block according to the grain because I always read the
Uh huh.
grain on the block and try to make it the best. But for example, I see the grains differently, or there's some flaw. I change it, but I try to keep the idea in the pipe. But it might change on the details. But sometimes there's such a big flaw, you have to cut up big piece of wood and it changed completely. But in general, I try to keep the idea
Hmm.
going, but change the details. Yes.
Yeah, yeah, okay, okay, thank you. I check my questions now.
Sure.
Ah, do you know any pipe makers in Turkey?
I thought about it, but no. I mean, sure, I know several Meerschaum carvers,
Huh?
but I don't know any Briar. Or maybe I know them, but I don't know they're from Turkey. But
Okay. Have you have you
yes,
ever,
yes.
have you ever used a Meerschaum pipe?
Yes, I have one. I smoked it a few times, but it's a little bit too big for me, so I didn't smoke it that often. I would try to find a smaller one because I prefer smoke smaller pipes. I liked it. It's different than briar pipes, of course. I like to try it more often, but I have to find the right size for me.
Ah, okay. Do you like a small bowl, right?
Yes, exactly.
Okay, okay. Our some friends really like small balls, and
Yeah.
and I'm not adapted completely that style, but
Okay.
my smoking pipes ball generally standard, and I
Yeah.
have a question about that.
Maybe it's because I'm a craftsman and I like to have my hands free. So the small ball you can just clench and give your hands free and do
Yeah,
something. So
yeah.
maybe that might be the reason.
Ah, yeah, you're right, you're right, you're right. Okay, in pipe engineering, are you more traditional or more revolutionary or experimental?
So I do most of my pipes doing like freehand drilling,
Mhm,
shaping first,
mhm,
and then I'm doing the drilling. But it used to be revolutionary, but I think nowadays it's kind of classic or or traditional. So I don't think I have any revolutionary techniques.
mhm,
Yeah, maybe one technique, but it's not really. It's more like a design thing that I have this curved shank cap. It's
mhm.
not straight; it's curved. So this is kind of difficult to
Yes.
get right. Um, Not sure if you would call it revolutionary. It's just
Ah,
different. But when it comes to drilling and all the other stuff, I'm pretty much traditional, I would say.
okay. I think that because I checked your designs, and
Mhm.
actually I won't say about that traditional. Your so many design more revolutionary.
But yeah, the design for sure. Yeah, I would
Yes,
prefer
but
the design is more.
engineering is classic, right?
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, exactly. There's not so much you can do that. You can do it like a reverse calabash, which is different, but also not new really. It has been around for many years. So, but yeah, I think there's all not so much should change in the technique way because it's very important that the
Uh-huh.
drilling are right and everything. So keep that classic and do
Yeah,
the
yeah.
rest.
Pipe makers often get pipes back from customers, right?
Yeah.
Time to time. What are the most common user mistakes you see?
So I don't really get many pipes like rejected. That didn't happen that often in my career. But what happened recently was that I sold a pipe which had a accent material with a different kind of wood, and I kept that both the briar and the accent wood dry for many years, so it was cured well and even stabilized. But when it arrived, it was in China, and I think it was very dry, like in the
Mm-hmm.
north. And after a few weeks, the accent material had a crack, so it opened.
Oh, oh.
Yeah. So I replaced the pipe, of course, because something going wrong. I have to replace it. Even it might be not my fault, but he's a customer. So
Mm.
yeah, of course I replace it. So what I could think, which is important, is that how you keep the pipe. For example, one of my customers, he travels to Mongolia, which is minus 30 degrees in the winter, and I have other customers who live in South America, which is very warm and humid. So there's very much stress on the materials. Like wood is still alive, still can change from the environment, from the climate, and everything. So what I could say as a recommendation for customers or for pipe smokers, to try to keep your pipe in a stable environment as possible, like 20 degrees,
Uh-huh.
not too hot, not too wet, would be ideal. So of course you can take it outside and travel with you, but where you keep it, it should be more stable environment, and don't let them lay in the sunshine, because UV rays can make the grain disappear. So I would say take it with you, travel with them. It's made for using, but it stores them in a steady place. That's my advice.
Weight and area is really important. So,
Yeah,
uh,
yeah.
okay, okay. Thank you.
Another thing, it didn't happen to me, but I remember Rainer Barbie
Mm-hmm.
told us that a lot. Let's see, I can demonstrate. Take a pipe cleaner, and let's take this pipe again. So I'm not sure if you can see it. So when you clean the pipe, uh, you see can you see the cleaner?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So some people just, take it too much inside to the other side of the bowl, so it
Mm-hmm.
pokes here. And if you do it very often, you will destroy the coating, and so just be careful, not too deep into the bowl for when you clean the pipe,
Oh,
because
yeah.
apparently that happens a lot with him. So it's just when you clean the pipe and you just poke it to the other side of the bowl, you just destroy the bowl
Uh-huh.
coating and the wood on the other side, because always the wire from the cleaner always go to the wood or inside the bowl. So that's not really good for the pipe. Just make
Oh,
sure it's not too wide into the bowl.
yeah. Actually, I really pay attention about how clean my pipe, and it's really important for me. I really
Mhm.
pay attention. I can't hit the wall.
Yeah, right.
Yes. Thank you so much. Okay. After Denmark and Italy, do you think
Mhm.
any new pipe making countries or style are becoming important?
I think that the American school for sure,
Hmm.
which is heavily influenced by the Danish and I think the Japanese styles like fugufish and stuff like that. And I think, as an observer from the outside, I think there's a very clear American style visible. Um, Chinese developing their style at the moment. They took a while to really get their own design language, but it's getting more and more obvious that they're, making their own designs with their own Chinese cultural influences, which is very interesting to see. There might be a German design school or pipe making school, but I think that is for others to say. For me, it's difficult to really point out what would be a German design. I know that many German pipe makers are kind of crazy with the ideas. They're doing very unusual shapes,
Hmm.
more sculptural sometimes. But I'm not sure if that could be counted as a German design school or pipe making school.
But your inspired based is Denmark style, right?
Hmm.
And I see your forms
Hmm.
really value added because Danish forms today I think not continue develop,
Yeah, okay.
but some another regions or some another styles develop the
Mhm.
Danish
Yeah.
based.
Hmm.
Yes, this question is really important
Mm.
because so many people really curious about that. You know, briar is natural material full of
Mhm.
surprises. Have you ever had to discard a pipe near completion because a hidden flaw appeared?
Mm. Not this card. I didn't have it to throw away because some flaw in the briar, but I had to change
Hmm.
the design. For example, it was a smooth pipe, and after polishing and buffing everything shiny, I saw some flaws which wasn't visible before. So I had to make it become a sandblast pipe, for example, or a partially sandblast. That happened. Usually, the deeper flaws are noticeably before. Like if there's a flaw in the chamber, you notice after drilling. So that would go to the fireplace or become my workshop pipe.
Yeah.
So yeah, I didn't have really to throwing away a pipe after almost completely finished, but I had to change the design
Change
or
design.
the finish. Yeah.
Mm, nice, nice. Because our some friends think about for pipe makers, if you appear a flaw in the briar block, pipe maker discard the pipe. But learn now that it's have so many different way.
Yeah. Mhm.
Okay, okay.
Yeah.
Do you remember the first pipe you ever made?
Yeah,
Do you
actually,
do you
I have
still?
it here. It's kind of a
Mm.
not
Yeah,
sure
I
it's
remember that.
funny.
Okay.
Yeah, yeah, I had it in the other video.
Mm-hmm,
Yeah,
mm-hmm. It's like a poker, but half blind poker,
yeah,
right?
it didn't sit, at small
I
people. I didn't know that was necessary.
yeah,
But yeah, it was fun. I didn't really have a proper
that
drill. I just, did some
that's
wood
cool.
drill and, make it round at the bottom. But it worked. It was fun, and I liked it, so I kept doing it.
Nice, nice. It's very important. It's your first pipe.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. It's kind of
It's really important.
where it all started. Yeah.
Yeah, I really curious about this question.
Mm.
In sandblasted pipes, we often see horizontal
Yeah.
lines, sometimes
Mm.
referred to as age lines, and especially, Mimo said
Yeah.
that a video. Do these really tell us anything about the briar's age, or in other words, what exactly are these lines and why is it important for them to form a continuous ring grain?
Um, yeah, so you have to imagine the briar bowl is like a
Hmm.
football-sized bowl, and it grows from the middle and another ring and another ring. So yeah, it does say something about the age. I'm not sure if like one ring is for 1 year or if it's like slower. I can't say about that, but it says also something about the area where the briar grows. So when you have like tighter grows rings, which is tighter together,
Hmm.
it grows more slowly, and if it's more far apart, it
Yeah.
grows more faster. So it depends on the environment, the weather, and the climate. Um, and yeah, those rings are which are visible after the sandblasting process, and it depends on the ring how the sandblast will turn out. Some will be like very narrow, very you know close
Mhm.
together. Some are more wider
Yeah.
and more craggy, and it's very interesting when you start sandblasting the pipe to see how the growth rings are going. It's very interesting.
Okay, it's more about rarability or
Yeah,
unique,
yeah,
right?
yeah.
Okay, okay. And this another important question because we are rearranged our pipes so many times. For example,
Mhm.
it is airway hole 3.7 or
Mhm.
3.5, I don't know, but we rearranged that air hole
Mhm.
4.5.
Okay.
And
Wow.
what airway diameter do you typically use in your pipes?
I use 4 millimeter
Hmm.
usually. I don't have a different size for that, and for me that works the best. And in my experience for smoking, That's the best. Of course, if you have a bigger airway, the airflow is a little more easier, and probably the flavor development is differently. But the chance to get some tobacco stuck in the airway is also bigger. So I think 4 millimeter is better to have a clean airway and still a nice flow and nice smoke.
Four. Okay.
Yeah, I think with 4.5, the chance that you get some tobacco pieces falling into the airway and then you have to,
Huh.
get them cleaner, the chances are bigger if the airway is also bigger. So I think 4 millimeter is better in my experience,
Hmm.
but other people might have different experiences. So I think it's
Yeah, yeah.
just like always depends on what you like and your philosophy, how you smoke. So yeah,
Yes, it's not a rule. It's so personal.
yeah, yeah, right.
Okay. If imagine you want to buy yourself a truly great pipe,
Uh-huh.
regardless of price, how would
Yes.
you choose it?
Um, I guess I would choose a pipe which I admire the maker a lot and also give me a chance to learn something. So, for example, I would probably choose a very big, complicated tukutomi if I can,
Yeah.
like a sitting blowfish cavalier or something like that. I probably could watch it for hours and still find new things to think about. But or for example, Alex Florov is also a grandmaster of the free shape forms, which I like a lot. Brighton James is also very young, but still one of the most talented pipe makers out there at the moment. So one of these, I think, which are good craftsmanship from the smoking, but also very interesting designs and the design language, the forms are give me some inspiration. Probably, yeah.
If you want to check engineering, how would you choose it?
Well, I probably check the basics like how is the chamber drilled, how is the airway drilled, how they meet, especially in a difficult angle, like a very steep angle. How did that? Is there a ramp for the cleaner to get through? How do they make that? The mouthpiece tenon, the depths, all those little details which are interesting for me and always a challenge every day.
What do you think about the airway meeting the very bottom center of the chamber perfectly
Uh-huh.
flush? Because for me, this is a major obsession, and in a
Yeah.
good pie, I absolutely want to see the light
Mhm.
entering from the shank hit the exact center of the chamber
Yeah.
for the perfect alignment. But I can see that some smoking pipes and handmade
Mhm.
or high-end branded
Mhm.
pipes. What do you think about that?
I don't think that's so important to really meet exactly on the bottom. I think it's important that it's in the middle, like
Hmm.
it's centered. I mean, it's not important for the smoking. You can smoke a totally uncentered drill pipe. It's no differently, but uh, it's just a question of craftsmanship. That it should be centered, and of course it should be on the bottom. But it doesn't really has so much big influence on how the pipe smokes. For example, Rainer Barbe, he always said the airway should be 1/3 lower than the chamber. So 2/3 of the airway should be above the chamber bottom, and 1/3 should be below the chamber. So that is what Rainer Barbe said. So there are different ways what you think is correct and what works the best. I try to meet always the bottom of the chamber,
Hmm.
but I don't think it's really that important for the smoking quality.
Smoking. Hmm. Okay. Actually, I think if not slight airway, chamber bottom, we can't smoke tobacco of the bottom.
Yeah, yeah. If it's too high, yeah, I
Yes,
agree.
yes, we can smoke. And I remember our pipe maker, he said that if you don't smoke at last bit for a while, the sugar will
Mm.
eventually clog the pores and make the go wet in
Mhm.
the bottom.
Yeah.
What do you think about that? It's true, right?
Yeah, I think so too. If it's like, yeah, too much of the sugar or the moisture in the bottom, it can make the pipe tasting foul or damp or not that nice. Yeah, that can happen. So yeah, that's why you always should clean your pipe and let it dry and yeah, and the engineering is very important. So if it's too high, you have some
Uh,
moisture on the bottom which can't get out. If it's too low, it's also not good. So it should be quite close to the center of the bottom. Yeah.
okay, okay. Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you so much. What is your favorite tobacco or blend?
Mm, so at the moment, it's what I'm smoking right now. It's the, can you see that? It's a HH Dark Sea, not HU
Mhm.
Dark Sea. That's one of my favorites. It's so yeah, that's blend with Latakia, Perique, and with a slightly black licorice tasting, but it's not really a heavy aromatic. It's very subtle. I like that. I like the Germain's English special Latakia flake. It's
Hmm.
also one of my favorites, but it's very almost impossible to get it. So yeah.
What are your thoughts on Latakia in particular?
Yeah, that's my favorite.
Ah,
I
your
I think
favorite,
I
right?
smoke.
Nice.
Yeah, I think 95% of the tobacco I smoke is a Latakia blend. Um, Sometimes Orientals, sometimes with, sometimes without Latakia, but that's what I smoke most of the time.
Ah,
In the very hot summer, maybe I try some Virginia, but in general, yeah, Latakia is my favorite.
ah, nice, nice. Actually, we talked about that, but I will ask. What are your ideal chamber dimensions? Do you have preferences beyond the standard measurements?
Well, yeah, mostly I draw my chambers with 19 millimeters. I think that is in average, the best diameter. And the depth, it depends on the pipe size, of course. For me, for my pipes, because I makes mostly smaller pipes, is around 30, 35 millimeters in depth, sometimes 40, but that's already quite big for my
Yeah.
design. Yeah. And for my personal taste, I smoke probably a 30 millimeter mostly. Sometimes whenever like a bigger pipes, I drill with 20 millimeters, and with some sanding, it's probably 20.5, 21. But that's not that often. Sometimes I also make quite smaller pipes, like really tiny pipes, and those I would drill probably with 17 millimeter. That works quite
Hmm.
well. But for example, if you like flake tobacco or pressed tobacco, those smaller pipes probably not so ideal because it expands a lot, but also depends on your experience as a pipe smoker. I guess if you're experienced, you can smoke it without any within any pipes. But yeah.
It's actually very important for me and our community. Dirk, form reflects a maker's signature and perspective
Mhm.
beyond engineering and craftsmanship. What inspires your shapes?
Well, mostly I think it's nature. I have a lot of pipe shapes which are inspired by nature, like the Dora is like a fish form, or I have the grain bug, which looks like a bug. Something like that. Also architecture and design in general gives me a lot of inspiration. But it's mostly like details, like a curve on a building, or some details on a sketch or design, or like a door handle. It could be everything. Um, so, as a designer, I learned how to develop ideas. So sometimes I just see something like a curve, which I like, and so I start drawing a lot of sketches, including this curve and trying to include it in a nice design. And sometimes it works, sometimes not.
Yeah.
But so yeah, I got inspired by nature a lot, and I try to work with the idea and trying different variation of that idea. Yeah.
Okay. As a pipe maker, when you examine a pipe, regardless of personal taste,
Yeah.
how do you define whether a shape is good, original, or beautiful?
Mhm.
In other words, how should we read the understand pipe shapes?
Okay. So I think what's important is that you can see that the pipe maker did it on purpose. For example, the proportions, they could be like differently, and maybe also make you think, oh, that's different, that's odd, maybe that's ugly, but it's interesting. So
Yeah.
ugly doesn't mean bad. So on the first side, of course.
Yeah.
So yeah, so you think, oh, that's different. I will take a second look, and so that is good design if you makes you want to look again, because there's something on it. And then you should see the intention on the pipe maker in the design. For example, if he makes a line and the line has a bump, the bump should be intentional because he wanted the bump there, not because he wasn't able to get it straight. So
Mhm.
this is for me very important, and I think you can see it as an experienced pipe maker or connector or smoker. You can see if something is intentional or just the person wasn't able to make it better, which is also okay. Everybody has to learn. Doesn't mean he's a bad pipe maker or she. It's just
Okay.
something you can see. Yeah.
I think about that. We need to look more
Mhm.
smoking pipe shapes. For example,
Yeah.
sometimes I really waste my time on on computer, and I look so long times
Mhm.
different pipes and shapes. Can we say we need to look for more smoking pipes?
Yeah, I think the more you study pipes, the more your eyes get trained to spot out which is a good design, which is a bad design. Um, but for me, I think if you're looking for a pipe you would like to purchase, it's your own smoking habits are important. For example, you asked before which kind of pipe I would buy if I had any
Mhm.
money. So of course I said some high grade pipes, but what I really smoke the most are like smaller sandblasted
Mhm.
pipes, which I can carry with me and which are durable and not so easy to get. So if I just look for a pipe to purchase, I probably would look for the size and the surface and the design. If it's do something with me, like say, oh yeah, that's interesting. That's differently. Maybe that's ugly, but still like it.
Ah, yeah,
So
yeah, yeah.
yeah,
It's
yeah.
it's
So
it's
that's important. Yeah,
so strange. Yes, yes.
yeah. Mhm.
Okay. How
Yeah.
can we evaluate briar quality in smooth versus or sandblasted pipes? Could you share some practical tips about that?
Briar should be dry and cured well. So it should be sit at least 1 to 2 years. So that should be dry enough. Otherwise, you would taste it when you smoke it. That the briar is not dry. You can taste it immediately. So that is actually the most important thing. Before we talked about the grain rings, the growth rings.
Mhm.
So if they're tighter together and if the grains tighter together, that means the briar is very hard and dense. So it will withstand the heat better. So that will be good for smoking, cooler. But if the briar is more wider and more soft, the moisture will get into easier, so it will smoke drier. So that's not just wrong or right.
Uh-huh.
It's just on depends on your experience and how you smoke and what you're used to. So in general, if you buy a pipe from an experienced pipe maker or from a factory and or a pipe shop, usually the pipe should be smoked all well because the briar is dry and there shouldn't be anything wrong with that.
Okay, okay. This is another very important question for me,
Yeah.
and and I also want to add something from my own experience.
Uh-huh.
Personally, I feel like no matter how perfect a pipe is, it still needs some time to break
Uh-huh.
in and build at least a thin cake layer to really
Mhm.
deliver the best smoke.
Yes.
Even the best pipe, if it has no cake
Yeah.
layer, makes to tobacco taste a bit too raw and
Mhm.
overly fresh to me, sharper, less balanced. Like the
Yeah.
flowers haven't fully settled yet. What's your take on that?
Well, I totally agree. So well, I usually use bottle coating on my pipes because of that to speed up the breaking in process. I also like how it looks, the black colored tobacco chamber. For me, it looks aesthetically better. But yeah, it takes some time to really break in a pipe. And which is interesting if you smoke an olive wood pipe, made from olive wood and you smoke it, for example, with latakia. That's very interesting because the olive wood has a very strong taste by itself. And the first few smokes, the taste of the flavor of the olive wood will merge together with the latakia, if you choose
Hmm.
latakia. And that's very interesting. It goes away after a while, after the cake is built on up. But I would recommend if you never smoked an olive wood pipe, get yourself one and smoke it with letter clear, and that's a very interesting experience.
Thank you. My questions is done. Thank you.
Okay.
If you want to some ask question, but I really appreciate about that.
Well, yeah. Could you recommend me some Turkish pipe makers I should check out, like briar pipe makers,
Ah,
or even mushroom covers you think which are really good?
actually, I will send in
Okay. Yeah. Great.
Instagram, and we have 4 or 5 pipe makers in Turkey.
Uh-huh.
For example, that is
Yeah, that's beautiful.
my, yes,
Hmm.
is a Hakan Çolakoğlu
Okay.
pipe,
Hmm.
and I really liked that pipe, and
Yeah, it's great work with the facets on the side.
yeah,
That's
yeah,
that's not easy to make. It's great work.
yeah, and I actually I have another pipe, same pipe maker, but I can't find because okay, I sent back that pipe for new mouthpiece.
Okay. Hmm.
As a smaller, because last times my smoking pipe preferences so change.
Okay.
You know, sometimes
Yeah,
it's
it happens. Yeah.
yeah, I really like that because it's not monotone. I don't have strict rules or
Hmm.
judgments
Okay.
because it's a hobby.
Right.
It's a really good hobby, and I use that hobby for relaxing
Hmm.
and thinking.
Hmm.
I can, and I sent our pipe makers
Hmm.
from
Thank you.
Instagram. Thank you again for
Yeah.
that
Thank you
interview.
for asking me.
See you again.
Yeah. See you again, and we keep in touch.
Yes, yes.
Okay. Thank,
Take care. Bye bye.
thank you. Bye bye.
Bye bye.